Now, supply. In supply, this is very important because in GST, GST is applicable only when there is a supply. So if there is no supply of goods and services, GST is not applicable. So to understand GST, one has to for supply understand that what is supply. And we have three types of supply, and these three types of supply will make you understand which types of GST rates will be applicable, because the GST rate applicable on the particular type of supply of goods and services depends on which type of supply of goods or services is that. First is principal supply. Principal supply is a supply which is supplied individually, not in combination with any other goods or services. And when a particular goods or services are supplied separately, individually, that we call principal supply, and the GST rate applicable to that particular types of goods and services is applicable in the type of principal supply. So when you go to buy anything, any goods or services, and in that case, in that case, you are given a particular goods not in combination with any other goods or services, then that is called principal supply. And whatever GST rate is applicable to that type of principal supply, that is applicable as a GST rate. There are so many examples, lakhs of examples. We have to only understand that we are getting these goods not in combination. Okay, say for example, now electricity, what you are consuming, you see the electricity bill, you are having the GST rate of electricity, or when you are buying stationery, or where you are buying TV, or when you are buying a particular any essential goods, or when you are buying say flat, or when you are buying clothes. When you are given a particular goods or services in isolation separately, individually, not in combination with any other goods or services, that is called principal supply of goods and services. And for all these supply of goods and services, different rates of GSTs are applicable, and that is given in that schedule. Now we have to understand then what is next type of supply, mixed supply. Now mixed supply means here the goods and services are given in combination to the consumer, but they are artificially bundled. They are not naturally bundled. For example, when we go to buy say toothpaste, and along with that we are given toothbrush, and they are actually given together, or when you go to buy toothbrush and along with that you are given toothpaste, or when you go to buy say oil and you are given say soap along with that, and they are tied together, they are given as one product. They are artificially bundled, but actually they are not naturally bundled. So whenever the goods are given in combination, which are artificially actually bundled together and not naturally bundled, we call this type of supply of goods and services as mixed supply. And in case of mixed supply, we have to understand the GST rate of that particular product, which is higher, that is applicable to the entire value. For example, say we go to a particular shop to buy toothbrush, a toothpaste rather, and along with that toothpaste, we are given toothbrush also, and they are tied together. And suppose the GST rate for toothpaste is 18% and toothbrush is 12%. If you go and buy toothbrush separately, it is 18%, and if you buy toothbrush separately, it is 12%. And when they are given together, tied together as artificially bundled, the highest rate of GST is of toothpaste. So entire 18% GST rate will be applicable on the entire amount of the goods which are given to you together as toothpaste and toothbrush together, because whenever it is a mixed supply of goods and services, the highest rate or higher rate of the goods, whichever is having it, that is applied on the entire amount of the goods and services supplied. Say in the case of oil and soap, when you buy say oil, 1 liter oil, and along with that say you are given one small soap free, which is called free, but nothing is free in this world except free economic goods. So this, suppose is having oil is having 18% GST rate and soap is having again 12% GST rate if you buy them separately. But if they are given to you as a mixed supply together, bundled together, artificially bundled, then the 18% GST rate, which is otherwise applicable to oil, will be applied on the entire value of oil and soap, which is given to you together. So that is why it is called as mixed supply. And in mixed supply, higher rate of the goods and services which are forming part of that mixed supply is applicable on the entire value of the goods and services supplied. Now, composite supply. The third type of supply is called composite supply. Now, composite supply is a supply of goods and services where the goods and services supplied of different types, you cannot segregate them. They are naturally bundled together. They are inseparable. It is not possible to separate them. And when goods and services are given together, because they are naturally bundled, in that case, also the highest rate of GST applicable in that case is applicable. Let us take the example of composite supply. When we go to any hotel, nowadays because of Corona, we can't go and sit there, but we can definitely get parcel because parcel counters are open now from this unlock one for last few days. But then when you go there, and suppose now you are going and sitting in the hotel and you're ordering something, eating there something, understand one thing, whatever bill you are having in front of you, it is for two things. Number one, it is for the items and dishes that you have consumed there. Plus, it is also having the charges towards the other expenses of the hotel, like the salary and wages paid to employees there, the electricity charges, and certain other expenses which are incurred by the hotelier, hotel owner. So these expenses, they can't be separated. So when you get a bill in a particular hotel, you get one bill for the goods and services supplied to you together, which are naturally bundled, which can't be separated. So that is the case of composite supply. And for that, the highest rate of that whatever goods and services you are consuming or availing, that is applicable on the entire amount, like we have seen in mixed supply. So in healthcare services, when you go for health checkup, again whatever you are charged there, it is not only for the medical test, but it is for the other services also given by the staff over there, the air condition expenses, and so many other incidental expenses. For example, when a particular AC is say, installed in your office or at home, then installation charges also are there. So AC, you pay for that. Also, you pay for the installation, but both the amounts are shown as one in the bill. That is also a case of composite supply where the amounts are not given separately. Repairs of computer where the computer part is replaced, and along with that, the technician who is coming there for repair, he's charging his amount there, but he's not showing both the amounts separately. It is also a composite supply. And in such cases of composite supply, we have to understand that these goods and services are naturally bundled. They cannot be separated. They cannot be supplied separately. And since they are together, the GST is always applicable at the highest rate of goods and services which are forming part of that composite supply. Then remaining things that one has to understand that it is supply of goods and services that is very important in GST. If it is not supply of goods and services, friends, then GST is not applicable. And understand for consideration, free samples, exhibition of artwork by an artist, etc. It is not part of GST because there is no supply of goods or services because it is free samples. And now you know free samples are given as an ad expenses, advertising expenses, or there is exhibition by an artist of his work. That is actually not in the nature of supply of goods or services because there is no sale there. There is no consideration which is coming for that. Now, what one has to understand more in supply case that it has to be in the course of the business. Means whenever there is a supply of goods and services, that should be a part of business. Now, suppose something I am giving in my personal capacity to my friend, to my family member, or to anybody, and that is not part of my business, then that will not form part of supply because that has to be a part of business. For example, a particular, say, book publisher, he is giving his books to the different shops and students and then libraries, and he's charging their certain amount. Then there is a consideration, and that he's supplying in the course of business of printing books and selling books. So that is supply. But when he is giving those books, say, as free samples, or is giving that book to his relative or to his friend without any consideration, that is not part of supply, because that is not given in the course of business. Now, when we talk about supply of goods and services, we have to understand that it has to be necessarily in the furtherance of business. Now, what is furtherance of business? Furtherance of business means it is actually not forming part of the business, core business, but it is incidental to the business. It is there because of business. It is having the features of business. For example, now say I am having my car, which I am using for myself and my family. So it is my personal asset. And having car and using it for my family and for personal use is not my business. But when I sell that car and I make profit on that, then that is business. And that will have consideration, and that will have GST. So understand one thing, when suppose I give my say car to my daughter or to my any relative, and it is not having any consideration, it is not supply. But when I sell that car to say my friend or any third party, and the third party or friend is paying me certain amount, even my relative is paying me certain amount, so there is a consideration. And since there is a consideration, it will be called as supply of goods in the furtherance of business. So supply has to be either in the course of business, so it is actually as a main part of the business, or it could be though not in the nature of business, but it is having the features of business, and features of any business is a consideration and profit motive. So even in any transaction which is adventure in the nature of, say, we say trade, commerce, or business but then that is having features like consideration and then profit motive, it is in the furtherance of business, so it will be called as and treated as supply of goods and services. Now, let us see these examples to make you understand whether it is supply of goods or goods and services or not. Just to make you very simple. Now, when there is a supply of goods and services from unrelated person, a third party is giving me something, some goods or services. Now, there are people who say that we are giving it free. Now, for example, say, believe me, I'm just giving you this example to make you understand. Suppose I am giving my car of say rupees 10 lakhs to my friend, and I am telling GST authorities that I have given this car to my friend and I have not collected a single rupee from him. First of all, understand nobody is going to believe this, and a person will be really mad, or person will be really out of this world to do this type of transaction. So government is also not going to believe this, that one has given a car to his friend and not taken a single rupee in consideration. So whether I have taken it or not, okay, I am not there to prove to government. But then government is very smart and government knows that in some other form I must have taken that 10 lakhs from my friend. That is the reason why in such transaction government is not going to listen to you. GST authorities are going to treat this transaction as a supply, because when you are giving it to third party, there is no natural love and affection, there is no free will, because nobody in this person who is having a sound mind, जिसको हम कहते हैं कि जिसका दिमाग ठिकाने पे है, जो पागल नहीं है, वो कभी भी ऐसा ट्रांजैक्शन करेगा नहीं. That means that person when is giving something to unrelated person, means not to a relative, and he says that it is free of charge, whether it is free of charge or it is having some consideration, government is not going to believe that. Government is going to treat that as a supply of goods and services for consideration, whether you have received it or whether you have not received it. So it will always be a supply, because whether you have taken money or non-monetary consideration for that, that government is not going to ask you from. Government is going to believe that you have taken something, and that reasonable consideration amount will be taken as the amount of supply of goods and services. Secondly, amount received from unrelated person from personal consumption without consideration. Now, if this on paper I prove that I have given this to my friend and there is a documentary evidence, and I say that, for example, something a reasonable amount worth goods and services I am giving to a third party, my friend, and it is a question of say few thousands or few hundreds of rupees, and we are having a proper document, and the document says that there is no consideration coming from that third party which is unrelated party to me, and on the basis of that, if there's a documentary evidence, then in that case it will not be treated as supply of goods and services, but it has to have a documentary evidence, and without that government is not going to listen. Next thing, supply from relative with consideration. Now, when there is a consideration, obviously, whether it is a relative or third party, it is supply of goods and services. Because no consideration, no supply. Consideration, it is definitely supply of goods and services, whether it is from relative or whether it is from third party. Then we have supply from unrelated person for personal consumption without consideration. Again, for actually this last thing, uh, it has to be from, just a sec, it has to be from relative again. Just a minute. So when a relative is giving you any goods or services for personal consumption, again there's a documentary evidence that there is no consideration coming from that person who is giving it, third party to whom it is given, it is not a supply of goods and services. So these four things one has to understand very clearly to understand what is supply of goods and services, because that will only decide whether GST is applicable or not. GST is applicable only when there is supply of goods and services, and if there is no supply of goods and services, the GST is not applicable or attracted. Now let us see some more examples. Uh, Certain things which are neither supply of goods nor services, when something is done by employee to the employer, for that whatever employee is doing, employer is paying him salary or wages, so that is not, there is no separate consideration coming for that, it is a part of his duty. Anything done by any court or tribunal, any service given by member of parliament, member of legislative assemblies, member of legislative councils, corporators, gram savers, members of other local authorities, whatever services they give, there is no consideration, so that will not attract GST. Services of funeral, burial, and crematorium or mortuary, till now they are out of GST. They are not taken in the nature of supply of goods or services. Actionable claims other than lottery, betting, and gambling. Lottery, betting, and gambling is a part of actually supply of goods and services, so GST is applicable. But other than that, actionable claims are there. That is out of supply of goods and services definition. And non-taxable territory or non-taxable territory. See, anything which is supplied by, for example, see, till that removal of 370, that Jammu Kashmir was out of the GST. So in that purview, let us take example. The buyer is from Jammu and Kashmir and seller also is from Jammu and Kashmir. So since buyer and seller both are from non-taxable territory, GST is not applicable. But now, from next year onward, that GST will be applicable even to Jammu and Kashmir.